Back in 2004, a young Canadian woman named Emily Patterson, along with her friend Rachel Thompson, decided to venture into the Middle Ridge Wildlife Reserve, one of the largest protected natural areas on the island of Newfoundland, Canada. Their trip was part of a school-organized excursion celebrating the end of the academic year, and both girls, originally from Grand Falls, Windsor, had chosen the wooded landscape as their camping destination, joining a group of friends and classmates. The choice was hardly random. Newfoundland's summers offered perfect conditions for outdoor adventures, with mild temperatures and late sunsets that stretched the hours of trekking. Throughout the day, the group followed marked trails, built campfires, and shared meals outdoors. However, driven by curiosity and the apparent tranquility of their surroundings, Emily and Rachel decided to wander away from the campsite, pushing deeper into the forest. It wasn't an especially reckless decision. The girls knew the area well and were confident that if anything went wrong, they could find their way back to their friends without much trouble. In the few recovered photographs, we can see that by nightfall, they seemed lost, wandering into areas that, according to the maps, didn't belong to any known section of the reserve. One of the primary concerns, and the first thing authorities considered once the search for the missing girls began, was the presence of reclusive religious groups that had, at different points in history, retreated into these lands. There were stories of isolated communities, settlements frozen in time, where contact with the outside world was scarce, and traditions had remained unchanged for generations. It was said that these groups were made up mostly of women who followed a small number of men that held unquestioned authority within the community. Unlike conventional rural settlements, where labor was more evenly distributed, in these groups, women were primarily responsible for daily tasks. Their lifestyle was austere, with no access to electricity or any modern comforts. On rare occasions, some of these women had been seen outside their communities, always by chance. One of the few places where such encounters had been recorded was along Highway 360, the long stretch of road connecting central Newfoundland to the southern coast. During traffic accidents in remote areas of the highway, witnesses claimed to have seen these women among the onlookers who gathered at the scene. They stood out not only because of their attire, long, white garments resembling old-fashioned dresses, but also because of their demeanor. When noticed, and if someone attempted to engage with them, they would react with a mixture of confusion and composure, maintaining an air of quiet detachment and, in some cases, smiling in a way that felt oddly out of place. Some of these sightings were captured in photographs, either deliberately or by accident. It was said that the moment the camera focused on their faces, their reaction was always the same, an inexplicable smile, as if they didn't fully grasp what was happening or the purpose of the device pointed at them. They never appeared frightened or embarrassed by being photographed. If anything, they seemed simply unaware of the significance of the moment. When authorities launched the search for Emily Patterson and Rachel Thompson following their disappearance in Middle Ridge Wildlife Reserve, they managed to recover some of their belongings scattered across different areas of the forest. Among the items found, the most significant was a well-preserved camera, which provided crucial insight into the girls' final movements before they vanished. An analysis of the images revealed that Emily and Rachel had ventured into a part of the reserve that bore clear signs of human intervention, though not in the usual way one might expect in a protected natural park. Several photographs showed massive trees with visibly altered trunks, their bark appearing deliberately manipulated or damaged. Most striking of all was the presence of dark stains at the base of many of these trees. These marks didn't just spread across the ground, they climbed unevenly up the trunks, twisting and distorting as they reached the highest branches. While the origin of these stains remained unclear, their irregular patterns and the way they seemed to have seeped into the wood suggested that they were neither the result of natural fires nor any known tree disease. Another series of images taken by the girls showed offerings carefully arranged in wicker baskets placed beside the altered trees. Inside the baskets were flowers of an intense black hue, some of them wrapped in delicate strands of barbed wire, suggesting that their placement was not merely decorative, but served some kind of protective purpose, perhaps as a deterrent against predators. As they ventured further, the photographs indicated that Emily and Rachel had encountered more of these baskets scattered throughout the forest, some stored inside small, makeshift cabins, others arranged around structures resembling totems. These carved wooden figures bore elongated faces with grotesquely distorted expressions. Upon closer examination of the images, authorities noticed a disturbing detail within the offerings. In some of the baskets, mixed among the black flowers, were what appeared to be fragments of meat in various stages of decomposition. Though the photographs made it impossible to determine their exact origin, the most plausible hypothesis was that they were remnants of animals hunted in the forest. This discovery only deepened the suspicion that the girls had inadvertently stumbled upon traces of ritualistic practices. Following the sequence of images, it became evident that at some point in their journey, Emily and Rachel had arrived at a lake whose existence was not recorded on official maps of the area. The body of water did not appear particularly vast or deep, but what made it unusual was its reddish hue, a dense, opaque tone that did not match the typical appearance of lakes in the region. While this phenomenon could potentially be explained by the presence of certain microorganisms or minerals in the water, the lack of prior documentation of such occurrences in the area made its discovery all the more unsettling. In two of the final photographs taken at the lake, the silhouettes of women could be seen wading into the water. The surface barely reached their knees, and it was unclear what they were doing there. Whether they reacted to the photographs being taken, images that clearly seemed to have caught their attention, remained unknown. Approximately 2 hours after the last images captured near the lake, the photographic record continued inside what appeared to be an abandoned cabin. The first few photos revealed rooms in an advanced state of decay, bathrooms with rust-covered sinks, walls cracked and coated in mold, and bedrooms where the remnants of mattresses and crumbling furniture indicated years, perhaps decades, of abandonment. There were no obvious signs of recent habitation, yet certain details stood out to investigators as they reviewed the images. One of the most unsettling details was the crude drawings covering the cabin walls. They depicted what appeared to be oversized flies, sketched with thick, rough strokes, as if drawn with charcoal or some similar material. These figures were repeated across different sections of the dwelling, always prominently displayed and, in some cases, encircled by indecipherable symbols. The insistence on this imagery suggested that these insects held a particular significance for whoever had once lived there. The girls' exploration continued into what seemed to be a basement, where the images became even more disturbing. In this underground space, the camera captured several cages of similar size. Upon closer examination, investigators noticed that some of these cages contained organic remains in varying states of decomposition. However, the exact nature of these remains was difficult to determine from the photographs. It was unclear whether they had once held live animals or if the cages had simply been repurposed as containers. The final sequence of images taken inside the cabin showed the building's attic, a narrow, partially collapsed space. It was here that Emily and Rachel documented their most chilling discovery, a large creature clinging to one of the wooden beams of the ceiling, its elongated, angular limbs wrapped tightly around the structure. Its body appeared swollen and covered in what could only be described as a black exoskeleton. Around the point where the creature clung to the structure, several of the same wicker baskets the girls had previously found in the forest were visible. This time, their contents were even more apparent, remains of meat in an advanced state of decomposition. This discovery reinforced the hypothesis that the inhabitants of the area, whoever they were, not only knew of the creature's existence but actively offered it sustenance. After this, the photographs shifted back to the outside. In this final series of images, the camera captured a panoramic view of the nearby forest, where several small cabins could be seen scattered among the underbrush. Unlike the first dwelling explored, these structures appeared smaller and more rudimentary, some of them completely covered in a dark mass of swarming insects. In certain shots, the sheer number of insects blurred parts of the landscape. Some of the cabins were practically engulfed by these creatures, with their walls and roofs dripping thick, dark liquid where the insects seemed to gather. This was the last visual record before the camera was abandoned. There were no further images to indicate what happened to Emily and Rachel afterward, nor any evidence that they had managed to leave the area. Their whereabouts remain unknown.